All right, I think we're good to go. We're going to get started. Folks can move. All right, cool. So today we've done an SDRL session for networking, right? And although not too complex, there's still quite a few steps we have to go through. AlamoFire makes that even easier, especially when we're working with, like so far with an SDRL session, we've only worked with getting information, right? We'll get tool.com, we get Reddit, get Mashable, but very often working with APIs, there's authentication required, right? So APIs have API keys, API secrets. They might have parameters we send. They have like a plethora of information that they require from us to give information back to us, right? So that's a little bit more complex when working with an SDRL session. Well, AlamoFire makes that super, super easy. So we don't have time to go over every case with AlamoFire, but we're going to install it. We're going to work with it to get some information from a weather app, request custom information, custom parameters, and then we're going to work with a notification center. So when our app, we can send notifications to our users when our app is in the background, right? So say we have a to-do list, and the to-do list might have due item might have a date. We can tell the user, hey, your due item is due today, right? And then the notification center also has a way for us to quickly, when we pull down the notification in iOS, we can swipe across certain apps because it's functionality is swipe and do a quick task. So I can choose to complete the task, cancel, or do something else, right? So we can quickly draw up the logic here before we start working with them. Depending on our flow, we'll either get started with local notifications or APIs first. I vote with a letter, but let's see where we go. So this is going to be very quick and easy. So first of all, we'll get an app. We have a box for city, state, and then we have a get temperature. If you guys want to get fancy later, you can have this be automatically populated at the geolocation. So this will talk to a weather API, give us back the weather, and we'll present the weather up here. So we can display temperature and conditions. Then we can also add another button here to give you weather tomorrow. This will essentially, we'll fake a little bit. We'll make it so, let's make it actually give you weather in the future. Or remind me of weather in the future. And this will take us to a different screen. And the different screen will have a date picker, which we haven't worked with yet. All right, so we have a whole bunch of information here. You can scroll through, and then we'll say, tell me weather. Now we'll be fading a little bit here. We'll make it so we get notification like right now in a minute from our simulations because we want to mimic, getting into the future. We don't want tomorrow to get the weather, right? Just to make sure it works. And then we'll add another notification, which will be when our app is locked, or when anytime we drop down, right? In the drop down, we'll have the weather with 2 actions. and it'll just be making actions for now. It won't make much sense for context. We'll just go over the boilerplate about that. So we use AlamoFire to get the weather, request the weather for our custom location, and we use the local notifications and background tasks. So we'll cover some background to some extent that iOS gives us when dealing with notifications and when our app is in the background when we're running. Cool. Questions on this logic? Anybody want to take another route? Pretty straightforward, right? Cool. And if there's any time, we'll spend the rest of the time working on our projects. I don't think there will be any time left over, but let's see where it goes. Okay, so let's create a new project. And I'll call this weather notifications. And I'm just going to go with iPhone, so I don't have to worry about constraints. So I'll make this a compact view. And let's also find AlamoFire in GitHub so we can install CocoaPods right away. So if you Google AlamoFire, you'll come to this GitHub page. And then give us instructions for adding the CocoaPod. So we'll go through the same flow of I'll show my project in Finder. I'll drag it to terminal. I'll do pod init. This will give us a pod file. I'll go in the pod file and uncomment the platform and the use frameworks. Oop. And then I'll add the pod AlamoFire. Let's also add Swift-JSON because AlamoFire basically deals with just pulling and pushing data. It doesn't really deal with parsing our dictionaries and arrays. So I'm going to find GitHub Swift-JSON. And the cool thing is that Swift-JSON also gives us an example of how it works with AlamoFire. Okay, let's see. Swift-JSON. We might just have to drag and drop it in the project. Okay, where are you right now? So you went to terminal and you did, and you went to your directory and you did pod init. Then you open your pod file and edit AlamoFire and Swift-JSON. I'll go ahead and make a platform here 9. Huh?
Every time you switch to JSON, I have AlamoFire 3.1.
3.1 instead of 3.0. That's fine. So this, what this quickly line and forward bracket means that it's AlamoFire 3 and higher.
3 and higher.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so I've been doing it. So it's a difference. I've been doing cocobomb.com or .org.
Yeah.
Finding out the copy.
That's fine. Yeah. I usually go with the GitHub version because it's usually a bit more up to date. Because the developer is going to go through an extra step to publish the CocoaPods. Whereas in GitHub, you know, whenever they change their code, they push it straight to GitHub. So I find it to be usually more reliable, but it works as well. And then we'll do pod install. Build our project. Sorry, I need to get a napkin for this thing. Leaking. I'll be back in a second. Actually, while I'm gone, if you're already ahead, go to openweathermap.org and create an account and get an API key. This will let us use their weather API and give us a free API key.
Now, paste. You want message. I'll put the 2 lines to the top.
All right, everybody logged in with open weather data? Huh. I'm getting an issue from my AlamoFire pod. So I might just have to do one git, like I'm pointing the Swiftly JSON. So I'll just have to do git. Did you guys have trouble installing AlamoFire?
It's the same issue.
Yeah, we might have to point straight to the Git repository. The problem with pointing to version 3.0 or higher is if CocoaPods is not up to date with their versioning, like I said, we can pull it straight from GitHub. Yep, we did it. So this is what the pod file looks like.
Still queued up. Install.
Okay. Yeah, the CocoaPod server is still a free public server, so it's not as fast as it could be. Are you guys having problems? Are we still installing? Is it up and running?
I tried that and it's still not seeing everything.
Oh, good. Yes. Yeah, play lunch in the morning. Yeah, should just open up your XC workspace and click on files and see what buttons are there.
Next week is on.
Interesting. Yeah, just one on GitHub. Yeah, new libraries are being continuously updated. CocoaPods list them, but do not necessarily have the latest version. All right. Then open application, see workspace. All right. And my app.
See your terminal. Or your pod file.
Yep. Let's also keep two tabs open. We'll keep the AlamoFire tab open, as well as the open weather maps. And then for open weather maps, the API we're going to be working with, log in here, passwords. Okay. So in open weather maps, we go to API. The one we're going to be working with is, we'll start with current weather data just to make sure that it works. And then we'll move on to the 5-day/3-hour forecast. So if you go to current weather data and go to more, you'll see a bunch of sample queries. So the one we're most interested in is just the most easy one where we go city and state or city and country. And if you click at that, open the new tab, you'll see the format. And you'll also see that automatically it appends this app ID after that. So that app ID is required with every call we make to the API. So if I was to do just London, UK, and remove the app ID, it will say invalid API key because it requires us to authenticate with the API key. So is everybody able to get here? Go to API, current weather data, and then click on the second link under by city name.
So we populate, we change our link there for there, just change the city and state.
Yeah, so basically we replace this query right here, right? The London, UK, with whatever city state our user is entering. Now, if we want to automatically do this, we can also pass latitude and longitude, and we can just pull that information by core location, right? Everyone have this up and running? Everyone sees this display, API output, right? So if I want to change this to Washington, DC instead of London, UK, should get this right. Now, what we mainly need are, so the weather conditions. Right now, we see there's, it's an array of dictionaries, right? Very often, weather conditions are also mixed, right? So you can have sun and rain, right? You can have cloud and rain. You can have cloud and thunderstorm, snow and sun, right? Snow and clouds. So we're just kind of worried with the first one, just because I don't want to waste time just parsing things. We should already be able to parse dictionaries and arrays. And we're also going to want the temperature. So we'll create a convenience helper method that converts Kelvin to Fahrenheit. Cool. So in our storyboard, let's go ahead and start populating this. Let's add our 2 text fields. So we'll have city and state. So I have a placeholder for city, placeholder here for state. We'll add a button. Weather. And then I'm just gonna make this prettier. And then we'll add another button for create weather reminder. It's orange and white And then at the top, I'll also add a label for displaying the weather output. Just go ahead and get crazy and change this to a different color, make it a bit prettier. What goes with the red and orange? Something like, no, it's very ugly. That's better. Color, we'll make this white. And make it a bit larger. Cool. And we'll have the starting text, and this is logic that we can have in our own app, so we should be able to do now, right? We can have the label hidden by default, and whenever we get the weather, we can show it, right? So we'll leave it as is, and then we'll add another view controller. That will create the weather reminder. So we'll just show that here. Let's actually go crazy and embed this in the navigation controller. And we'll have the create weather reminder go here. I'll change the background of this to same color. And then we'll also have a button here for set reminder. That's right. And we'll also add a date picker. We have not worked with yet. Put it up here.
What was the segue between those two controls?
Just to create weather reminder, just takes us to this screen.
And the blue part on that second screen, that's just background. Is there something above it? Is there?
This is a date picker, yeah.
No,
So,
what about the white section above that? Is that anything?
oh, this is navigation control that was inherited from this one because the show segue.
And where in the toolbar do you embed something in navigation controller?
Yeah. So you select navigation, the view controller, go to product, embed in. Where are we? Oh, editor, embed in.
Okay.
And then navigation controller. Okay. And then for this second view controller, let's add another view controller file. And this will be a Cocoa Touch class. And this will be just a normal view controller. And this will be the set reminder view controller. In our storyboard, we will associate this with the right class. So everybody's screen should look something like this. And then we'll just try and run this. My Xcode is acting up. Okay. So there's some stuff here. This is running very slow. There. Should be second nature at this point, right? So I'll go ahead and just fix this one. Right. Didn't we have a label here? Oh, we did. I think it's being covered by the navigation controller.
You just update the frames one and.
Huh?
If you just update the frames one and just.
Actually, you're right. I think it might. Okay, I might need to manually do this.
Related question. What's the command to undo a sync? Is it revert or is it?
To undo a sync between.
If I did a sync, pretty much deleted everything I had before my latest commit.
Oh. So you did a sync and it pulled, and what did it do?
It deleted everything I was working on since my last commit. So I think it just copied what I had on my.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you revert from your last one. Yeah. Okay. How are we doing, guys? Are we there? So, vertical spacing. Leading space. Trailing space. Vertical space. Leading. Trailing. Vertical. Leading. Trailing. Vertical. Leading. Trailing. All right. Should be a little prettier now. Yep, much better. Okay, now let's go ahead and tie our label and our text fields and our get current weather buttons to our first view controller. So I'll see. This would be my weather info label. This will be my city, weather city. My weather state. Let's go ahead and create a temperature and a conditions variable so we can reference outside of just when we make the call, right? So I'll make the variable of condition or temperature and we shouldn't have a class for that. You're right. Let's just get it working first, then we'll extract that. But that's actually exactly right. So we'll create a temperature, which will be, make it a float for now. And we'll do a condition, which is a string. Then we'll add the action for get current weather. And this should be good for now. So our view controller should look something like this. By default, we don't want this label to display, right? Because it doesn't have our weather yet, right? So how do we hide our label?
Change the text to white. If we had a background, that would work.
We did blank.
That text equals.
There's another way though. Dot. We're making the we're hiding the info label. So there's a few ways we could do hidden equals true, or we could do alpha equals 0. So if after we get the weather, we could fade it in. So we can actually do both. So we can do I'll just go with alpha. Alpha is 0. And one thing to note, which I'm not sure I mentioned before, is because of the way the graphics processor works, animating opaqueness in elements is probably one of the most expensive operations you can do. Or opacity is the word I'm looking for, not opaqueness. It's the real word. Let's also import our two libraries we're going to be using. So we'll be using AlamoFire and Swifty JSON. Oh, what's our issue? Oh. We'll still be able to build. Is everybody here? All right, let's get to the fun stuff. So we want to make it so whenever we do the get current weather, we hit the open weather endpoint. Now, one thing to note is the open weather API uses an API key. We're only going to be making weather requests from this controller, so it's okay for us to only define the API key over here. But if we were going to make API calls throughout our whole application to the open weather API, where would we store the API key?
Singleton?
Which is what's the
The
app delegate, exactly. So the app delegate is a singleton, which means the same instance of it is available for your whole application, right? So whenever we define a property in app delegate, we can reference the property, right? So usually that's where folks store API keys, is in the app delegate. But because we're only going to be working with it in the context of our current view controller, we'll define it here. And let's go ahead and go to our open weather map. And if you got to this screen, you should see this app ID here. So copy that whole string. And this will not change, so there should be a constant. Now, AlamoFire, on top of just making the syntax easier to work with, it gives us a whole bunch of convenience methods. It still runs in the background, like NSURL session does, but it also has stuff like it caches the request for us. So if the user loses a connection or if something happens to the app, their request is cached in their memory. So it takes care of a whole bunch of functionality for us, and we'll discover some of that. So first thing I like to do whenever working with APIs that aren't just like our Reddit, that were just like one API URL, is I like to map out what it would look like when we make the call. So in this instance, I'm just going to copy the whole URL we had when we got this feedback from Open Weather Map, and I'll just paste it here for us to start working with. So basically, this will be, what are we going to mix in here? How are we going to swap out the current properties?
You should replace your Washington and your DC with variables.
Yep.
And we should define the variables somewhere outside the IBF.
Yep. So should do from DC. So I should do something like weather city, right? Weather state, something like that, right? And then what else? It's app ID, right? We have it defined over here. So API key. Cool. Everybody caught up? Cool.
Where do you define your weather seating, weather states?
So these are the text fields that the IB outlets that we dragged from our storyboard.
Right.
Ah, thank you. Duh. Now again, we'll have to have some logic for if the user hasn't entered anything, right? So it's conditional, but I don't want to go through that flow right now. So the easiest request that we can create with AlamoFire, just like with NSURL session, is a GET request. Basically, that does exactly the same thing that the GET request in NSURL session does. If we go to our AlamoFire documentation, we can see that it gives us a little example here of hitting our URL. We can even pass parameters, which we won't now, but we'll test this as well. And then it gives us a response of the result, the data, errors, etc. So again, while we're learning something, we'll type this out. So we'll do AlamoFire dot it's not giving me. Oh. Request. And we pass the kind of request we want and the URL. So the method will be a GET request. And again, remember the HTTP verbs of get, put, delete, patch, right? The URL string will be our request URL. And again, we don't have to pass this in as an NSURL, right? Like we have to do with NSURL session. So it's another step we don't have to do. And then from there, we can do response. So there's a few ways to handle the response. The easiest, and the one that we're most familiar with, and it's really the most common, is we're going to deal with the request as JSON, right? So the response JSON. Yeah, we'll go with this one. We'll pass in the response. We'll just do a print response just to see if we get anything back. So the response actually doesn't just give us the actual response. It gives us everything into one large dictionary, right? So we'll do response.data. How much easier is that than the big block of an SRL session, right? So I'll do Washington, DC, get current weather. Transport security, right? We have to do, remember this issue over here? We forgot one step when doing the network connections. We have to, in the P list, allow network connections, right? So I don't know if you got to the stored somewhere. I have the feeder project open here for that reason. Where's the boarding files? And I'll open as source codes. And there we go, transport security. And then if I go here, I'll open my info P list and open as source code. There's two ways of going about this. You can either do this in the property list view or in the XML view. I like just copy pasting it here. It's simpler, I think. So I copy pasted this at the bottom of my info P list. Yeah, so for the P list, if you right click on the info P list and you open as source code.
Where do we get that screen from you?
The feeder project had it, but instead of finding it, if you don't have it handy, you can just copy paste what I have here. So we got our data back, right? By some bit code. Okay, are we up to date? So what's the next step? Right now we have our data, right? In what format? Huh? Bytecode, right? So AlamoFire gives us this other method, which print out the value. network failing. Okay, let's see if it fails. The value is not doing it. Okay, so it's even more easy to use Swift to JSON. That's fine. Swift to JSON makes it a bit easier to work with, anyways. So it's in bytecode, right? It's bitcode. So we want to convert this to JSON format, right? So I'll create a constant here for weather JSON. And remember the format for converting to JSON from bitcode?
UTF-8 string, something like that.
So we do this JSON, and we pass data. Response data. Then we can print weather JSON. So Washington, DC. Uh-oh.
I think before response.data, the JSON run, you need to write data.
Colon?
No, before, like, after the open parentheses.
Oh, data. Gotcha. Thank you, Roger. I thought it was JSON, but I think data. That's right. Yeah, I think you're correct. So Washington, DC. Okay, right, perfect. So how much easier is this in an SQL session, right? Just 3 lines of code. Now we should also be able to, instead of doing the whole request URL, pass in parameters with our request URL, which we'll try soon. But let's first get this logic showing here. So let's update our UI. So we'll set our weather info label. Be today's temperature is, so where are we getting the temperature from? Where in the chain is the temperature?
Under main.
Yep, main.temp, right? So we'll do weather JSON dot main dot temp. Actually, I think we have to do main. So and we shall unwrap this. Okay. And the conditions are again weather JSON. So the conditions are under weather, right? So it's weather, it's the first item, and main, right? Or we can just say a description. We can say, and the sky is clear. So we could say, and weather JSON, do the first thing there, right? or where are we? Weather, and the first thing, and then description. And then we'll fade this in. You guys remember the animation command?
I'm
UI.
surprised that, never mind.
Surprised?
You have that line where it says today's temperature is, and then you're passing in those variables. But I'm surprised you don't have a conflict with the double quotation marks.
Do you? Huh.
Yeah.
With these over here?
Yeah.
You might have to escape, maybe?
Try that.
Or another way is to just do, let temperature is. Actually, you should probably do this anyway because we're storing temperature and condition up here, which we're going to reference later. I'll do self.weather info label. Alpha is 1. Okay, so Washington, DC, get weather. Cool. So we'll have to do some work with our label and make it so it spans over 2 lines. Do you guys remember to do this? How do we set the property for the label to not trail? Huh?
The word rack.
Yep. I'm horrible at finding these under the. Ah, there we go. Line breaks. Word wrap. So Washington, DC. It's font a bit smaller, so it. Okay. Everybody have this up and running so far? Questions about AlamoFire so far? See benefits of how much easier it is to work with?
Yep.
I don't want to deal with that, but it's working, so leave it there.
You might have to set the lines to 0.
Thank you.
Can you show us your animation code to make it fade in?
Yep. So instead of just doing .alpha, we put the .alpha in the UI view to animate iteration.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna go ahead and store our temperature in those class variables we had defined up here, so we can pass these around to the next view controller if we want. Or let's actually go crazy. Let's not do that. Let's make it so whenever we have the other view show, so whenever we go to, where are we? Self reminder view controller, we'll have a function here for get future weather. And this will return a, let's make it return a JSON object. So we'll have to import AlamoFire and switch to JSON again. Alamo. And we'll also have to define our API key as well. So var API key. So in this instance, it would have been useful to have this in our app delegate, right? But we're just being lazy. So in our view load, where shall we set this? We'll have a temp conditions variable, which will equal the get future weather. So let's go back to our open weather API. Right now we're getting the current weather conditions, but we want to get a forecast of tomorrow's weather, right? So if you go click on the 5-day, 3-hour forecast over here and go to more, we can look at an example call by, again, city name. Oh, it's actually returning XML. I think we can actually just turn off the mode XML here. There we go. And you'll see that it gives us a list of weather objects, right? So one note here, which is actually pretty common among APIs, there's usually 2 ways we're gonna get dates back. We're gonna get them in date time format, which is the bottom date text property. Another way is, this is the Linux date time format, or Unix rather, date time format. So iOS has specifically different methods for handling both of these. So we can work with either one. We'll work with this one, just so you know how to translate that and compare that. But we're just going to work with this first date return, and you'll see that this actually refers to tomorrow's weather. So what we'll do from here is, as soon as the second view controller loads, we'll make an API call, and when the data comes back, we'll display the button then and have the user add the reminder only after we get the data, right? But let's start with the first step of just getting the data. So in this function we created, go ahead and create AlamoFire request. And let's see, we're gonna return just the first item. So this is a dictionary, right? So instead of returning a JSON, we'll just return a dictionary. I'm just gonna do a. Let's do remove the errors here. Yeah, sorry. So you're gonna have your API logic here, and to test this if it's working on your unit load, just go ahead and print the results. So go ahead and pull your future weather conditions, and I'll just paste the URL here so you guys, if you can't find it, you can. I'll save an error here because my code is not finished, so it's just a job to return whenever you get that. So you return method complement. So there's 2 lines over there for you to work with. Not right now. So right now you're just doing the cat logic over here. You just call it. How you guys doing?
So what day are we looking for?
So the first item over there, this one right here, first list item, is tomorrow, I believe. We'll confirm that. Yeah.
Pretty good. That's fine. Yeah, so.
Oh, there's my coffee. So it's been a couple more minutes, so we'll go over this together.
Want to return a dictionary? What is it that we need to do exactly?
Just return a JSON object for now.
Okay.
We'll probably end up making a dictionary. Let's just talk through it. The important thing is let's just get data back and make sure that we can convert it to JSON readable format. Josh, can I take you up on that?
Try to offer.
You want to that work? Can I charger up somebody, guys? Thank you. Rapid, charger, please. Appreciate it. I'm actually so bad that I constantly borrow my coworkers' chargers, and I have like 2 extra ones at home.
You got a lot of one at work, one at home, one at home.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's do this together. We'll go through the same logic as before. We'll do the return here. So we'll do AlamoFire request. The request is a get, right? The URL string is this right here. And I'm gonna fake the city and state right now. But ideally, we wanted this to pass through our first view controller, right? Right now, I'm just gonna do Washington, DC. App ID will be API key. And then we'll have a response, JSON. Word path response. And then if we open extra view controller and look at our JSON translation here, we can do something like this. So we'll do, what's our view controller name? We'll do the same thing here, weather JSON. And then the data we're gonna get from is from list. And then the first thing in the list, the first dictionary, right? Because our list has a whole bunch of days listed out. Right, looking at this?
So list at 0?
List 0, yep. So we'll go by weather data, and we'll get the first city. It will be weather JSON list 0. And then we'll just return the whole list for now. So we'll just do return first city, right? So our error here is,
I got the same error. Maybe because you're inside the AlamoFire.
yeah, so we might have to otherwise return we'll typecast this as NS dictionary, and we'll return an NS dictionary. And then we'll say first city be an NS dictionary. And then we'll just say first city that. And so we have list. And we have the first item in the list. Is this right? So we have, we're going to the chain list 0. Okay. The issue here is, okay, we'll just remove that because we're setting it anyway, so there's no need for us to pass it in the AlamoFire request. So now let's just debug as to why this is giving us a problem. Let's make sure that we're actually getting things back from this weather JSON over here. So let's debug this by just doing a print of the weather JSON list 0. And just comment that out. So if I go to my second view controller, of course. So the problem here is what?
It's only the scope of that AlamoFire request.
No, we have our first city actually defined here. We're just returning nil because our first city was nil. We didn't get anything back. So I'm just going to comment out the return so it's not required. And just really quickly to debug, remove that. Okay, so we're getting something back here. Right. So what is going on? Why are we not able to typecast this?
Do we have to convert the JSON format to an NS dictionary format?
We shouldn't have to. We should just be able to typecast it. I wonder if we can do. Well, value as NS dictionary. Okay, this might be working. So let's try and print the first city here. It should actually print out the same thing. Okay, there we go. Yes, we have to first tell it that we want to just get the raw value of what's in the JSON. Because right now, if you look at Swift to JSON, when we pass the value we get back from JSON into a Swift type, and actually this should work just as dictionary. When we pass it to a Swift type, we have to append with a column format the type that we're passing it as. So if it's a simple type of like string or integer, we can do instead of raw value, we can do string or integer. But because it's a more complex type, we're doing it a raw value, which is the actual, it takes us any object essentially, and then converts it to an index dictionary. And it's giving us an error because by default, if you do the .raw value here, you'll see that the recommended type for the raw value is any object, and any object is a Cocoa class. So a Cocoa class usually needs to be converted to an NS type and not just to a strict Swift type. I don't know if that made any sense to anybody. So here we'll return NS dictionary. Right, so now we'll set first city. I'm getting a warning here. So now, tomorrow weather. This should work, right? So we're returning the first. Now there's one dangerous thing that we're doing here. Can anybody point that out for me?
You're forcing the return of an option.
Yeah, you're forcing the return of an optional, right? So if this call is not successful, our app will crash, right? Horrible logic. And we'll leave it as is for now. Just I want us to be aware.
I'm glad you brought this up because you have to return something with a function. So what? You create like a fake dictionary or something you can return.
Yeah, yeah. You can return a dictionary of, if you don't have any values in there, you can have a dictionary of like messages, of error message, for example.
Okay.
And then in your receiving object, in receiving variable, you check to see if the dictionary has an error. Kind of like what iOS libraries do, right? That's exactly how it works. Or you can have a dictionary that's like this. This is actually how it works. So you have success, which is nil, and error, nil. And then over here, you do first city, success, set it to the result. And then in your receiving one, you see if the error is nil and success is nil, right? I'm not going to do all that. I don't want to check all that. It's going to take time. But that's how that usually works, right? Again, horrible logic. So you have to have a fallback for that. So I'm going to do another print here. Tomorrow weather, to make sure that our stuff is coming back in our view controller or view load. Huh. Right, because this is running before this is completing, right? So we'll take the easier route. We'll actually do this. We'll just say, we'll set this up here. And make this an NS dictionary. And then we'll just do tomorrow weather. And we won't return anything here. We'll take an easier route. Remove this. We'll also remove this. Is this whole process of going back and forth, is this making sense to you guys?
I'm a little confused with more. We're having to change things now too.
When what?
I'm a little confused on how the app logic works now. In that
Over here? Okay.
What are you changing now?
So I'm storing this here instead of having it pass to temporary intermediate load. Because we were airing out, because it was turning nil, since we were returning before the URL, before the API call was completing, right?
Can we just fix that with a closure? Like future weather would have a closure. And then when we called it from the muted load, we would just have whatever that tomorrow weather equals.
Yeah. So to create our own closure, so that's something actually we'll cover as well. I'll add to the list. So links is this for now. We need to actually call. Okay. Let's also start tying our logic here. So let's open our storyboard. And we'll tie our date picker. And our set reminder will make it so it has an action, but we'll also have a reference outlet, because let's hide it until such time that we can get the weather. So for the set reminder, we'll drag an IB action. Reminder. And then we'll also drag it as an IB outlet out here and call it set reminder button, so we can reference it. So we now have these two outlets, as well as the IB action at the bottom. And in the viewed loads, let's also hide our set reminder button initially. So the user doesn't set a reminder for an empty weather, right? So over here, we'll do self.set reminder button. Alpha is 0. And when this loads, we'll just do self.set reminder button. Oh, actually, we'll wrap this up in the UI view animation. And self.set reminder button, that alpha is 1. And let's test the data came back. So when we click on the button, we'll do print self.tomorrow weather. So by default, our button is hidden as an alpha of 0. As soon as our viewed loads, runs our get weather function. When we get data back, we transfer the data into a global variable, and we display our button. And then when we click our button after it displays, it should print out our data, right?
So I'm going when Xcode puts a warning level like something up.
There's our button displayed, and we have our data, right? Because our button is there. Again, like Josh said before, if this was a real app and we had weather we're passing around our application, we want to create a weather model, right? So as soon as our weather API request comes back with data, we store it in a weather model that we can easily reference, right? So we don't have to parse it every time. So we can just call weather.temperature, for example, or weather.Fahrenheit, right?
You create an instance of that model, and then the controller that you use a reference method that goes to where you want in the API.
Exactly. Well, depends on your logic. If you want to get the weather on an instance by instance level, so if you have a screen for example, weather in a certain city, another instance for weather in another city, then yeah, that's instances. But if you have the same weather location throughout your app, then it's a singleton, right? So it's totally up to you how you want to handle that.
Can you scroll up to the top of the output? No, the output that was the debug output. Oh, okay.
I wonder what clouds all equals 36 means. So the data we'll be working with over here is the weather and the temperature, right? Let's add a permission here for displaying the optional. Now, just an FYI, it's good to know for us to work with this, so you can reference later if you need to. Let's really quickly convert this datetime format, the next datetime format, to a datetime format that's legible to us. So in my set reminder here, I'll say tomorrow's or given date. And we can just reference the NSDate class. And the one we want is the time interval since 1970. That's Unix time. That's when Unix, I believe, came out, right? And then we pass in self.tomorrow's weather. And then DT. We also have to, this comes back to us as a string, right? If we look over here in our, no, it comes with an integer, right? I believe JSON, Swift JSON converts to a string, so we might have to typecast it to an int. Dang it. Okay, this makes it a bit easier. So var dt, and this will be right here. It's expecting a as integer.
I typecasted it as a time interval.
Yeah, you're right. Good call. Okay. So let's just print the given date that we got here. So it should just print out this in human legible format. There we go. All right. So we can confirm that the date is tomorrow, right? Because it's 12/8. Cool. Questions so far? Do you guys want to take a quick break before we start working with notifications? 5-minute break.
Sorry, you said your button back to life. You said the other one. Then you call again future weather, and then you call again future weather.
Sorry. What?
You made your button show up again.
Yeah. So by default, the button is hidden, right? And we're only showing the button after we get the data, because the button's job is to do something with the data, right? So after the call becomes successful, we animate the button and then we can do stuff with it.
Okay.
There's different ways to approach it. You can display the button, and then when the user presses it before there's data, you can show an error message. There's different, depends on your experience, right? Good. Just a little bit.
Okay, I did revert, and then should I say dash continue, resume revert, or trigger fix?
Let me see. That always makes me nervous when these apps do the converting for you because I don't know if it's something that.
Okay. So basically, what I did here in the app is that it wasn't letting me commit my project.
Okay.
I don't know why I pressed sync.
Okay.
I made the final project, and then it deleted what I had open. All the folders since my very last one.
So over here, we do the revert.
I didn't command like fix it.
Oh, okay.
I set my directory to my repository.
So. Do you remember which one was the last working one?
So you're pulling all these from the web, right?
They're saved, so it's the same. We just need to figure out a spot to go back to.
Say 640 today. 640, yeah.
Yeah, sure. 3. So we're 5. This is the last one yesterday.
Oh, okay. That'll be a lot more since that one.
But you should have been able to pull and overwrite if you hadn't made any changes. No. No. Oh, yeah. That's another project.
was their homework final project, but it wasn't visible. Food truck November 15th.
Before we do anything, let's back out here.
Okay.
So your homework was homework project.
So it was in this file, food truck file segment inside. That's what happened. It's already up to date. I get told when I sing.
It's weird shit. Okay. Glasses. Oh, that's over there as well. So what the project is there.
I got that up to home rock.
Okay. Okay.
Today.
Yeah, let's get back to it. I'm not sure what's gonna.
I know I'm always the GitHub guy problem, but
Huh?
I know I always give you trouble with GitHub. But
Yeah, it's okay. The editor is a pain in the ass. I'm not a fan. Okay, cool. So today we're going to do local events, not server events. Again, because chicken neck problem, right? We need to have, we need to understand how member center event disconnect works. So we'll save it for next class. So local events have a few requirements, right? Whenever we send a local event, there's a few things we must know. So let's just spit some things out. What would we, whenever you get a notification, whenever your screen is locked or in the notification center, what information is displayed to us?
an icon from the app that it's coming
Yeah, it's an icon,
and then some text.
right? Message.
And the time.
Time, right? It's an important one. That's the important one. This time. This is the daytime time session. There's also actions, right? So if you drag notification, by default it opens the app. But if you do it in the notification center, sometimes when you're dragging it, it gives you like a couple of button choices, right? Yeah, so usually a couple of choices. Something else is important, because our buttons and our notifications are usually grouped, right? There's very few apps that are not grouped, and it's pretty bad app design. We want to also group all our notifications together, right? We don't use cater to the notification center. So in the other category, and we also need to have a unique identifier for our notification. So we can reference it if you want to. So this is a UUID, I believe it is. And really this is just a unique number. One thing to note when we're sending notifications is iOS gives us a limit to how many notifications we can have queued up. The default for that is 60. So anything over 60 will start getting dismissed. We can also have repeat notifications. So we can, repeat notifications, if you have one event that notifies the user, say, 20 times, that gets counted as one notification. That's repeat notification. So that's kind of one way around it. And you might think 60 is a lot of slots, but you'll be surprised. Whenever we get notified of stuff, our apps usually have another indicator that there's something updated, right? Do you remember what that is? Usually our app icons also have a badge, right? So it's also good practice that whenever we notify someone of something, we also update our badge number on our app. And the number for that is some big obscure number. I think it's like 2,700,000 something. So let's hope your app never sends them notifications. Let's see, what else? It also gives us the ability to, through these actions, run background tasks. So if we have a to-do list, for example, and we drag our action, and we either complete or delete, we can run a background task while our application is not running to take care of the task. So we'll go over that as well. So we'll start very simple. We'll start that by adding just one action to our notification center through our second dialog window. And then we'll start building upon that. First thing we have to do is in our app delegate, we have to tell our app to allow certain kinds of notifications. So we have quite a few. We have alerts, right? We have badges that display the lock screen or coming down from the top. Let's see what else. Notification center. There's one more I'm trying to blank on. This is the main three. There's four though, I know that. So we'll go back and check documentation. So I want us to do that through here, through our set reminder. And we'll set a reminder for the user. We're going to fake it a little bit, right? Because we want to, instead of having to pick the date, we're going to make the assumption that the user will be notified tomorrow. That's our application will work, right? Or maybe we'll make it so we get the weather for a certain date and present them the date. For right now, we're just going to get tomorrow's temperature and send it as a notification at the date that we select, right? So for the purpose of testing our apps, we're just going to pick today's date and the next minute so we get the notification right away. So before we do it, let's just really quickly parse our information here. So we have our let's see, tomorrow weather info here. So let's get the temperature. Would be itself, tomorrow weather. And then going down the chain, we have list 0 main temp, right? So list 0 main temp.
You don't have to do the list 0, right? It's already, because you already did that in.
Do we do that?
37.
Ah, thank you. Yes, you're right. So tomorrow's weather main temp. Good call. Slow unwrapping happening here. And let's go ahead and make this a string. And I'm just gonna comment out this code over here, but leave it as a comment to convert to date. Let's see that our temp worked. So I'll do print temp before we start working with it. There. I think it might already be a string actually. We're converting it to a dictionary with strings here. Yeah. Cool. So again, this is Calvin, right? So we'll probably want to later on create a method, a helper method that converts to Fahrenheit.
Wait, how is it in a string format already?
Because we converted to an NS dictionary. So NS dictionaries.
It makes everything a string?
No, but it converts it to integers and strings and things that we can deal with in Swift or Objective-C. Therefore, not a JSON object. So it was already.
Does it look like it was a double? Or
Could be a double. No, so we could try it with this plus 45, right? Oh, so it's an any object right now, it's not a string. Yeah, so it's an NS dictionary of any object.
How did you tell that it was an any object?
Because the error told me that it was trying to convert an integer to an any object. Or add two things. I don't want to spend more time on that though. Let's just move on because we can talk about typecasting another time. So we know that we have access to this. So we'll just for now remove the temp and we'll start working with Notification Center. So we need to first create a notification instance. And we call the UI local notification. And then we pass all the options into our UI notification instance. So we can do notification, and we can pass in the message. So we can say alert buddy. And this is the message of a notification. So we could say the weather today, so this will be tomorrow's notification, right? Is we can have a whole bunch of logic here for, if it's under certain weather, tell the user to wear the coat, add some personality to it, right? Right now, I'm just gonna make it pretty dry. So, we set the date. That's the fire date. And this is where we reference our date picker. So do date picker. The date picker itself is just referencing the object. So we need to get the date from date picker. And that's really easy. You can just do that with date. Another option we can pass to it is a sound name for our notification. So we can do notification.sound name. And if you click in the sound name, you see that we have a type right here. So we can just say UI notification default sound name. Okay. You can do notification. I can spell it. Category. This will come in useful later. This is a key we'll reference to group all of our notifications. So I'll just call this weather category. Actually, I'll call this GA weather category, so it's more specific. And then finally, we add our user info, which is our UID. So we'll do user info. And this basically, we pass a dictionary of values. And what it does is it merges all these values into one long string. But this makes it easier for us to, if we want to find notification in the future, we know how to find it, right? So we have a format for setting these unique IDs. We can also randomly generate our ID, but there won't be a format to our IDs, and we won't have a way to reference them later if we want to. So we do that through the UUID. We pass it in an array. So we pass an array of dictionaries, so we want to pass them there. So we can pass in random keys. So we can say, for example, weather is for tomorrow. So this will be our key that does not change, our static key. And we can have the date. And this will be our unique identifier for when we add this, which will be date picker.date. Okay. So finally, we'll add this to notification, local notification center. So we'll reference our UI application and the shared application. And we've referenced this when referencing the app delegate in our core data, right? And then we schedule local notifications or local notification, and then pass in our notification. schedule local notification. There we go. All right, so I'm getting an error here. I think it's just a, there we go. So this should do it. So if I run this, and get here, I'll set this for 8:58. Set reminder. And now put this in the background. Let's let the time tick for a second. And the notification does not appear at 8:58 on the dot. It usually appears a few seconds later. Huh?
You're hedging your bets,
right? Yeah, exactly. So come on, baby. It's the waiting game.
That doesn't matter since you're inside your operating system on the front.
Nope, it doesn't. It's still the same. Oh, you know what? We have to do one more thing. So right now it's not firing because we didn't give our application permission to fire. So in our app delegate, in our did finish launching method, we'll do application, register user notification settings. And we'll pass in a UI user notification settings method with the 4 types. And here we pass the kind of notifications that we're going to enable for our app, right? And we can stack them, so we can have alert, we can have badge, we can have sound. We're going to enable all these. I know there was a 4th one. I didn't write down in my notes. We'll have to reference. Actually, let's click into there, see if it's documented. Notification type. Okay. Oh, that's a 3. The other one is none. So I didn't remember that. Okay. And then the category, this will become useful when we start matching up actions together with our actions with our notifications. So for now, we'll just leave it as nil. So whenever our app has notifications, we need to add this to our app delegate. And whenever we run our app, this will then ask the users for permission to receive notifications from this app. So let's try this one more time. So there we go. There's our request. We'll do this at 9:01. Set reminder.
So are we supposed to be in the background because you're only going to get the notification if the app is not open?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, let's go crazy. Let's lock our screen. Give it a few seconds.
Was it a command L?
Command L, yeah. Come on, baby.
Can you move your simulator a little bit to the left so I can see something in your book? Thank you.
This is the crappy part about test notifications.
You don't hear the sound of the simulator, I guess.
No. There we go. Right, screen optional because we're not unwrapping it. right? If I also bring down my notification center, so this is general notification. We can also look at the notification center over here. Come on. God. Beach ball of death. There we go. Web notification. So sometimes we'll get double notifications. That's actually an error I haven't been able to always figure out. It's sometimes wonky and double sound or double badge. Most of the time it's kind of outside of our hands. I could have just also clicked it twice. I don't know. Cool. Questions so far? Hmm? Yeah.
The UUID, what is that? Is that the unique user ID for the phone?
That's the unique user ID for notification.
Okay, is that like a is that like a reserved keyword?
Is there a reserved keyword?
Yeah,
the UID?
For that notification thing.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I've always used it just because it's how I learned it. But I think it is. We could try with it. You could try without it, but I'm pretty certain it is. So a low-hanging fruit here before we go into actions for notifications and background jobs, while we still have time, is the badge number. So really quickly, the badge number is super easy. We can actually change the badge number from anywhere in our app, right? We usually want to set the badge number whenever we're setting notifications, right? Usually. But any controller has access to it. So I'm just going to add it to my first view controller. And we just access the UI application, and then shared application, and then application badge number, and give it a number. So this would, for example, be if you had like a to-do list, this would be number of items that have a status of like overdue, right? Or if you had a social network with messaging, this would be the count of total number of messages, right? So let me just run this. Put the app in the background. After this runs, is our badge number, right?
So you would usually set this in like the app delegate, like you because you want it to be set on the. Or
No, I wouldn't. I would usually set this either in a background task that runs on a timer, on a queue, right? Which actually the queue for the background tasks is totally controlled by iOS. We have no control over that whatsoever. Or whenever the user takes an action, right? So if the user takes an action of finishing an item or you know, reading a message, I would update the badge number.
okay.
It certainly can be in the app delegate, but I can't think of any scenarios of why that would happen.
There are scenarios when you want that number to change. So either A, the user is in the app and something happened, like they got a new message but they didn't read it, and so that notification number would go off. Or B, the app was closed and they got a notification while the app was closed and they didn't read it.
Yeah, but the background tasks that run from app delegate, they can just call methods in another model. They don't have to call anything that's in app delegate.
Okay.
So usually background tasks are listed in the app delegate, but the actions that happen from the background tasks are defined somewhere else.
How do you make the badge just go red? Because I know some apps do it.
Just go red.
Right, they go, you show the red dot, but they don't show a number inside of it.
That's a good question. I've only done it with numbers in the past. I'll have to check that. I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
A method and
Yeah, just it's I'm sure it's something that's in the shared application instance. Cool. Questions so far? So one thing worth noting is our notifications, local notifications. We cannot decrement the number of notifications. So, and that's because we should have some structure about how we receive those notifications, right? So we should probably have a model in our application that has an array of notifications, right? So there's no way for us to decrement notifications, but we can clear notifications and we can increment or loop notifications. So whenever we remove notification, we can loop to them, remove the index, and then get the new number of whatever was in the model, right? I'm going to show you the syntax for quickly looping through notifications and clearing notifications. It doesn't really apply to this logic right now, but it's important to know if you are actively giving feedback to users of Notification Center, right? If you want to clear the queue. So a syntax for that is we get notifications. So we set variable notifications, or we'll mix it constant notifications. It's a UI local notification. So it'll be the same as that, but we're going to use it for another instance. So and then we can say for notification and notifications.
You have notifications defined twice.
Notifications, plural.
Or the first notification. Like, does online 66 has 4 notifications, you have 548.
Oh, you know why? Actually, this is wrong. We're not referencing notification. That's a single notification instance. So we want to reference actually the UI application notifications. And then shared notification again. And then scheduled notifications. And we can typecast this as an array of UI local notification. It's our error here. Share notifications. going on here? Mutual local distributions. We should be able to even, no. So let's see what's going on here. Maybe the syntax changed since last time I did this. Okay. Uh-oh. Looks like my Xcode's about to crash. It's flashing. Come on. I think my Xcode's about to crash. Let's see if I can close the task here. All right, I'm going to restart my Xcode. Totally crashing out. Okay, let's try some more time.
I just turned it into a conditional. And then with the as you don't need it like from after where it says like as thing, you don't need the as at all. Or the,
Because it comes back as a notification center. Yeah.
well, I guess because it's typecasted.
Yeah.
So now you know that you have it.
Okay, good call. Okay. Okay, and then here we can iterate through each one of our notifications and do stuff with them. So we can clear notifications. So we can say UI application shared. So